Welcome to Bards and Barrels, the podcast for Dungeons & Dragons players new and old. I'm Ross Druce, and I'm joined by my friends and co-hosts Brett Miller and Phil Boone. We'll be exploring the world of Dungeons & Dragons in each episode, sharing our experiences, offering tips and advice for those who play and run this classic game. So whether you're a new player just starting out or a seasoned veteran looking to get a new perspective on things, Bards and Barrels has something for everyone. So sit back, grab a drink, and join us as we roll for initiative and embark on an epic adventure. And there's the opening crack. It's time for another episode of Bards and Barrels. How we doing tonight, fellas?
Good. We're here. We're ready.
We're here. We're ready. I don't have good cheer for that.
Keep going.
I don't know where I was going with that. I'm going to stop. But you know what it is tonight? It is a mailbag night, which I know is everybody's favorite.
I'm always so terrified about this.
As you should be, my friend. This is like the epitome of D&D. It's like being on this side of the screen and just waiting for you guys to roll the dice and see what happens.
This is true. There's like, Ross gets all the power in these episodes. Brett and I are just along for the ride.
We go in blind.
And you know, the great thing is neither one of you have been like, let me run a mailbag. So I just, it's fine. It's all good. So let's without further ado, let's jump right into this. We'll start with a simpler question, maybe.
I hate how you said that.
There was a question mark there.
Everything is a matter of perspective, Phil. Everything is a matter of perspective. So question number one for the evening. Would you award XP for scaring a foe away?
Yes.
I concur.
I hate XP. that you lost me at that point. Like I'm much more in the camp of milestone-based leveling up. XP just gets so mundane.
I actually also agree with Brett. I don't do XP tracking. However, I think that being true to the rule, or true to the word of the rule, technically, yeah, you still succeeded in that encounter, even if it didn't end in combat. So technically, you defeated the foe, even if you didn't fight.
In order to stay balanced with the goal of using XP, you need to award XP for non-combat encounters.
Correct. And I think I'm unsure if this question is coming from a player character or a DM. But point being, the DM made a decision to run this NPC away. So there had to be a reason that it was getting its butt kicked, or it was in a non-advantageous situation that they decided they needed to leave the encounter. Probably as a result of whatever was going on.
I also think it's important that you reward wise decision making.
Correct.
Or good role playing. Like either one of those things are still worth, if you're doing XP based play, like it's still worth awarding XP to encourage that continued behavior.
And to discourage min-maxing of like trying to kill everything.
Yes.
Sure. Absolutely.
Murder hobos.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we wrapped that one up with a C. Good start, everybody.
That was simpler.
Okay.
Thanks, Ross.
First drive was a touchdown. Yeah. Woo! Question number 2. This one's going to deal a little bit more with cover, which sometimes we don't utilize as we should.
Phil and I are frantically pulling up our notes.
A rogue hides behind a pillar/door or wall. On the next turn to fire at an enemy he doesn't have line of sight around a corner. Does leaning out break stealth in combat? Is it movement? Question mark.
I would argue that it's not. That you can lean out. I would say if you lean out and take a shot, most likely I would probably allow the monsters or the NPCs or whatever you were combating an opportunity to maybe try to find you.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, it depends. If you're like really stealth hidden type deal, I would give them the opportunity to find you. If you're kind of ducking out and going back behind the wall, technically you have movement to use for that if you wanted to. So even if I was going to tell you had to use half your movement to do so, you still could.
I mean, even if you go simple and just be like 5 feet, so you're out. Step one block over, step one block back. That makes it really simple.
Sure.
Then maybe you get into the issue of, did they see you? Perception checks, stealth checks,
Right.
something along those lines.
That's kind of the along the line that I was thinking was that, if you force them to move out so they can split their movement, they move out, they take their shot, they move back. So they've never left covered they were in cover at the beginning of their turn, they were in cover at the end of their turn, right? To me, I agree with Brett that a perception check makes sense. So they can't see you anymore when it's their turn, but then you could roll to see if they know you're there.
But your turns are happening concurrently.
That's true.
So
as in terms of a round, yes.
And what if somebody is holding a reaction for when you peek out?
Okay, so funny, we're going to have a question on reactions later. Oh. See, this is where I like to have all these things in my little Google Doc here.
Who gave Ross the
bag of holding?
But like with a reaction, so they step out. If you have a reaction that allows you to, like, let's say, take a bonus attack or something. So the moment they step out, you can see them. They are no longer under the cover. That reaction would allow you to hit them. You have dropped your cover at that point. I agree.
Messy.
Very messy. and I think this is one of those things where it's like it's the discretion of the DM. They're going to play it in the moment how they feel it should be done.
I agree.
And one thing to keep in mind here is to not get bogged down in rules too much unnecessarily. Correct. Try and keep combat flowing first and foremost. Correct. You don't want to just completely kill the vibe that you guys have going at the table for one minuscule little kind of controversial or like discussed rule.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think so too. That's kind of what I come back to. Even if I was going to treat it like the 5-foot movement out, 5-foot movement back, if the character or the player said, I want to peek my head out around the corner, I would just allow that to flow in combat, but maybe to the NPCs or whatever, give them the opportunity to spot them. Sure. Like they stepped out and stepped back. I would just play it that way.
It's like we haven't even gotten into like technically if they're just peeking around the corner, if they don't attack, is it really movement to peek around the cover that you have? You're not leaving the 5 feet that you're probably within to do that.
Right.
So I think it just depends on the situation, and we're nitpicking this in a way where we can focus on this particular thing. In combat, you're probably like at your table. You're not going to spend time here going, well, did you peek out for more than like 3 seconds? Did people notice you?
Was it your whole head or just your right eyeball?
Exactly. So it's like, to Brett's point, don't get bogged down on that. Just keep it flowing. It's going to be fine. Next question. I have 2 paladins in my party that are 6th level, and they have an aura of protection, which gives a bonus to saving throws to friendly creatures within 10 feet. If they overlap, is the bonus stackable?
Leave it to Ross to add in a paladin question.
Oh, there's multiples.
Oh, God. He's just trying. You are just trying to level up your character when we come back in and you play a paladin again.
So also a shameless plug that our next class review is going to be a paladin. So, I'm just prepping you guys and everybody for that one coming up.
I was just like deciding how terrible a party with 2 paladins sounds, but it's fine.
Oh, it hurts.
Truthfully, I don't know the rules answer on this one, but as a DM, I would probably say no.
I think you are correct.
I don't know if that's the right call or not.
This seems like something that they would balance in the way that you wouldn't stack. Like, it's got to be redundant at that point.
So in my mind, it's going to be highly unlikely you have 2 paladins of the same oath in a party. That's just going to be kind of bland. So if they're of different oaths, they're going to have different auras anyway. So if one is the Oath of Devotion and has the Aura of Protection, which gives the +4 to saving throws, and then you have another paladin who is not of the same oath but has different auras that do different benefits, those stack in the sense of you get the benefits of both the auras. If they're the same oath and the same benefit, you're not going to get a +8 to your saving throws. That is not balanced and just doesn't work.
But what if it comes from different gods?
Okay, Get out of here. Get out of here.
All right, Paladin boy, where are you going?
All right. So let's preface this by saying it does not stack unless you're doing table rules, homebrew rules here, right? Now, you could have a house rule that if you have a paladin of different gods that they grant, I would not give them both a +4 though in that instance, because the book in the paladin section, the Aura of Protection gives you a +4 saving throws.
It would have to be one hell of a divine intervention to
sure
to double it,
and maybe that's how you balance it. It's if you have 2 paladins, they're just not worth as much, so you could stack them, or in specific instances, maybe you would roll, and if it's an 18 or higher, you do get the benefit of the double +4.
Sounds like this party really needs a bard, so we can throw bardic inspiration on top of it
Oh,
as well.
God, yes.
How high can you go?
So here's the other thing.
Or just do 2d4. Not just a straight
Sure,
4.
so
just,
then it's like an average.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah,
So
you could
get
totally
8.
do that. That's a good way to do it.
That is a good way.
So the other thing that we're kind of leaving out there is you have to be within 10 feet of both those paladins in order for that to work at this level. Where this becomes really messy is when they get into levels 17, 18, 19, 20, where that aura is 30 feet.
Oh, sure.
Because then you're constantly overlapping. At 10 feet, it's a lot harder to do because ideally you're flanking and getting around enemies and things like
so
that.
this is like in 300 where they had like the shield. They're like, shield! And then like they make
Yes.
a little turtle shell.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Leave it
I
to the
also,
paladin.
that's hard to keep track of, too. I feel like, just thinking back to Avernus, I think your paladin had an aura, and then there's another NPC that also had an aura, and I only had to keep track of the NPC. You were keeping track of yours, but when those would overlap, that was already hard enough to keep track of.
Right.
So I'm just trying to think of, like,
Imagine if you
paladins.
had that constantly.
Yeah, and like, oh, am I in 1? Am I in 2? I just think that'd be a lot to manage. But
And we were lucky because we were playing it on a VTT.
true, we could actually
could
If
see
you were
the aura.
playing on a real table,
Right. I mean, as long as you had, if you had like minis, it wouldn't be too bad
True.
because you can at least visualize.
yeah,
it.
but then you've got to remember that.
Right.
And your party has to remember that they're in or out,
Sure.
depending on where they're at.
But like theater of the mind would be awful because it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's hard to visualize. Period. Much less where I am in relation to
versus
everybody
15 feet?
constantly.
right, yeah,
I mean, I feel like when I've done theater of the mind stuff, I've moved way more than my 30 feet.
Oh, yeah.
always. That's how it goes.
Okay, so we'll leave that one there. Next question. This is about mending. A sleeve was torn off an intricate robe. The mending spell would be able to fix that. Now let's say a party is tracking a bad guy and they get a hold of his journal that has a missing page in it. Would mending be able to fix the book?
Ooh.
I would say, is the page is missing?
Correct.
No. If you had the page, yes, you could mend it back into the book. It could not recreate something that is missing, would be how I would do that.
I think the thing to remember here is mending is a cantrip. So it's like level 0 of a spell. You're not going to make things up out of thin air
Correct.
at level 0.
Correct. I was reminded of Harry Potter when I read this question of Gom's elemental law of transfiguration or whatever
Oh,
it is.
geez.
Here, deep dive there, right? But you can't, at least in the Harry Potter world, you can't like create things out of nothing. That's exactly what you're trying to do here. If you have the page and you're fixing the book, mending does the trick. If you're just trying to figure out what was ripped out, at best, I would say it creates a page, but there's not going to be anything on it.
That can
At
work.
worst, it doesn't do a damn thing.
That would work
So-
potentially. Just the way it reads, right? The spell repairs a single break or tear in an object you touch. So it doesn't talk about like replacing something. It would be truthfully like, sure, if the page was torn out and you wanted to fix it because you're going to gift the book to someone.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
I like leaving a little loophole in there because like I can imagine a situation where like the party's really excited that they think they're gonna figure something out, and then you allow it to create something only to find out that it didn't do anything to help them. So I like that idea, but I agree with both of you guys. It's not gonna give them what they want. It's not gonna tell them the secret that was torn out.
I would love that instead it's like a bunch of like, offhanded jokes instead, like towards them. Like a mocking type of page.
No, I'm picturing it just like a bunch of coupons for the local fair. Like, oh, this just randomly appeared. The nearest paper in around was transported on into the book.
That would be perfect, yes.
Redeem at the Prancing Pixie for 1 stein of ale.
Ooh,
It's geotag, so if you're within a certain range of the city, it pops up with certain coupons, just like Amazon. Okay, need help for Curse of Strahd. One of my players wants to play a vampire. Since Strahd is looking for someone to replace him, spoiler alert,
Whoa.
I know he'll never think anyone is worthy enough, but what would he think of another vampire? And now, what would the people of Barovia, or even how would Irina react to him?
I don't know if we're far enough into this campaign.
I don't know. Ross, did you put in your own question?
I did not. No, that would be funny though if I did. This one's interesting because I think it kind of goes. It would be like in Descent into Avernus, playing a tiefling, right? It would be along those same lines. Like if you were of infernal descent or a demon in the Nine Hells. So it's like, what if you're a vampire in Strahd's domain in Ravenloft or something like that, right? I think it's doable. I'm not sure it's practical for the story, and this would be something like I would head off probably in a session 0, because you could really get into the weeds here, because it's like, if you're a vampire, are you the prime vampire or are you a vampire spawn? If you're a vampire spawn, you really can't take the place of something because you're beholden to somebody else, right?
Right. I'm thinking, like, isn't that character almost just a servant of Strahd anyway?
True.
If they're there.
That's entirely possible.
In charge. So I don't know. I would lean towards probably not allowing it, but I'm not familiar enough with the story.
I think you need to work with your DM to balance it and set some fairly firm guidelines on if you're going to do this, what you can and can't do.
Sure. And I would say that in terms of how this person reacts with other characters in the book, because obviously the people of Barovia are very weary of vampires, especially Irina, because Strahd has come after her time and time again. That look at like Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3. He is a vampire, and he is one of the good guys in the story, right? So it's like, you can be that way. You just have to think out how you're going to play this character a little bit. I mean, if you have a reasonable plan for this, I'd probably be okay with it, but you and me, player DM talk, would have to outline that ahead of time.
Well, yeah, especially if it plays into the story of, like, Strahd wanting to replace himself. That has significant impact to potentially how the DM would structure the campaign.
Sure,
so you
totally.
definitely have to have a conversation about that.
Yeah. Anything else, Brett?
No, I don't know. This is a good question, because it's like, you could really work with your DM to lean into it and just go with it and like go something really crazy. But at that point, you're almost being a sub DM. Like,
sure. Yeah.
So maybe not.
I think I'm almost torn in a way, because like the easygoing, laid back DM side of me is like, yeah, do whatever you want, we can make it happen. But then the other part of me is like, I look at the story and I'm like, it just doesn't fit quite right in this one,
especially with a pre-written module.
Right.
If this was a homebrew, maybe you could get something out of it, but.
And I also think it would be one thing, like if you come to a session 0 and want to play a vampire going into the story, where then we could either hash out or not do it at all, or have we been doing other campaigns leading into this one and you've already been a vampire too.
True.
Then you have backstory built and we could work our way around that too. So I think there's several different paths you could take with that. Next question. G'day all. I don't know if this one's coming from Australia or what. I'm running a campaign into hell. Any tips on travel between and out of hell would be much appreciated. I read this as, how do you get in? How do you get in and out? How do you get out if you want out? Like asking all the questions.
Well, getting in is easy. You just find a high-powered wizard that can plane shift you.
I mean, if you're a high enough player, you could have the plane shift spell already and you can get yourself there.
You could attempt to summon some sort of high-powered devil or demon.
Hashtag bad idea. I mean, maybe, but...
We are just throwing stuff at the board and seeing what sticks, okay? We're not shooting down ideas here.
That's fair.
Getting out, I feel like, is a little more challenging, potentially.
Correct. And I think if you're a player that has the plane shift spell, you can move around as you choose within the limits of the spell.
And there's some magical items out there, too.
It can transport you, for sure.
You could find a planetar.
You could.
You could redeem a fallen angel.
I mean, there's lots of ways.
There's some ways. I was also thinking, realistically, you could strike a deal.
You could. Yep.
With either a devil or a demon.
Was this coming from
likely a devil?
Player or a DM? Did it say?
Unsure.
Interesting.
I heard that sometimes the Super Sticks mobiles might be able to make jumps.
That's only in certain universes of the Nine Hells.
That's right.
That's D&D 616. Happens to be the one we're in. Okay, yeah, no, I agree. I think that one's easy and complicated all at the same time.
Yeah, depending like what sort of a wild goose chase you wanted to send your players on, you could send them like into the Fey realm, and then they could pass through some sort of portal and end up there as well.
You know, if you're the DM and you're trying to guide your players towards a solution, they might need a little bit of hand-holding to get there. Like, this isn't necessarily information they're going to know if they don't know it.
Sure.
Like,
Agreed.
it's kind of hard to find out on the fly.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you might need to lead them a little bit to a solution.
I think especially if this is your first time ever being there. Because it's like, I mean, when we ran Descent into Avernus, like, you had to give us a lot of, like, known things. Like,
well, even in that module, the way it's designed, you go to Candlekeep to learn more about the 9 hells before you actually go. So, I mean, that's an easy way too. Like, if you need to give your players a little bit of help, send them to the library, right? Have them do some research. They can find some information out. They can make some connections. It's a good way to kind of open up that game.
if you know a guy who knows Traxagore,
Yes.
then you're ready to rock and roll. Next question. This one should be semi-easy. Is initiative an ability check? Kind of, sort of, yes, no, because it does use your dexterity
dex.
modifier.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Plus your proficiency gives you your initiative.
An ability check? Or ability...
I would say no. I think it's adjacent to ability checks, but it's not an ability check.
I think you're right. It's not defined as an ability check, but it uses ability to do it would be a good way to explain it.
Why would I care, I guess? Like, what are they trying to get at?
You're looking at me like I know the answer to that. I do not. I just copy the questions into a Google Doc, my friend.
All right, I'll think about that for a minute. I'm just curious, right? Like, so what sort of a bonus or, something are they looking for to see if it applies to initiative? Something that would boost an ability check?
Sure, but you're never really proficient in initiative as an ability. So
It's
like
more like a skill check than an ability check, because your skill check takes whatever your ability is plus proficiency if you
I would
have
agree
it.
with that. Yeah.
It's closer to that than it
Right.
would be to actually ability, right?
It is interesting because, like, by what it is, I mean, it's effectively when you're in a situation, you're checking to see how fast you go in that
It's
situation.
reaction time. That's truthfully
So-
what it is.
So in a way, it kind of is an ability, but it's definitely not defined as an ability, though. So I can see where the mistake would be made, but it really isn't one.
Interesting. So, reading initiative, though, they're calling it a dexterity check. That is literally what the rule says.
So
When combat
maybe.
starts, every participant makes a dexterity check to determine their place in the initiative order. You do get an added proficiency bonus, but it's classified as a dex check, which would be an ability check.
So
How
you know
quickly
what?
you can jump into combat.
Yeah.
Boy, we moved from being against this to being for it pretty damn quick.
Only if you follow the rules. Exactly.
Sure.
Right? And there's a suggestion, but that is, according to the law, that is what it would be. I see a lot of disagreement in this room.
Or for all you regular D&D players, according to the raw.
Yeah. Yes.
See what I did
yes,
there?
I see. Some people like it that way.
Brett's just giving us both a funny look.
I know.
I just don't care.
Well, we get to throw this rule book out when the new one comes out anyway, right?
That's true, right?
So-
So everybody toss out your 5e book, go buy the one D&D. Okay, next question.
Where's our next hot take taking us?
Yes. It's very clear that every player has one action, one bonus action, one reaction. But do they have to happen in that specific order? I mean, could a player use their bonus action, then their action, then reaction?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm pretty sure that's the way it's designed. So, especially a reaction, like you could take that. That's not, well, do you have to take it after your turn? Now I'm like questioning that actually. I know you can only take it once per round, but let's say you didn't roll first initiative. You're third.
Correct. I think if you're going
you
at the
could
top
still
of the
use your reaction though.
Yeah,
Like, let's
you
say
get
you're
you-
the paladin, you want to use
Right.
your reaction to have something or whatever.
Mhm.
You know, those things you can do as a paladin
Right.
that Phil never plays.
No,
I
he
think
just
you
plays a
could-
rogue, even if he's not playing a rogue.
You could do that even if you haven't taken your turn yet.
Correct.
So yeah,
I think that's right.
I think you could take it in any order.
I mean, really, the action, bonus action, reaction only 100% applies. Probably if you're at the if you're at the top of the order. But even then, you could do a bonus action first to buff yourself, let's say,
Mhm.
then take your action to attack, and then hold your reaction for later in that round needing to do something.
I definitely know you can change the order of your bonus action and your action because as
Yeah.
a rogue, we like to disengage as a bonus action, and then
Sure.
you can use your action to dash as well. So
Absolutely.
you can
Yeah.
GTFO.
And I think you can, so like if you're in the middle of the order, you can use your reaction before it's ever even your turn because you may have an ability that allow, like let's say you may have a counter spell. Counter spells don't pop up very often. A lot of people don't understand how they work, but typically counter spells are reactions. So if somebody fires a spell at you, you can use your reaction to cast a counter spell. That could happen before it's ever even your turn in a round.
Opportunity attack.
Opportunity attacks, another good example. So I think it's kind of depends on where you're at, but it can go in any order. But you get one of each in a round, unless it says differently.
Yeah.
So, anything to add, Brett?
Nope, you guys got it.
We talked ourselves around that one.
Welcome to the Phil and Ross show.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. Next question. This one's a funny one. This one should be fun. How long would a dagger meant for a halfling be?
Meant for a halfling?
Mhm. And I probably spent way too long earlier thinking about this because I was like, a normal dagger.
I feel like that's a personal question.
Okay. Hold
How
on.
long your dagger is?
What is the average length of a normal of a
Yeah, how about you
medium
Google that?
size? Hold on, I gotta spit it out. Medium sized character.
No.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to mark this one as explicit.
Because a halfling is considered a small character, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm
So
trying not to add to the jokes.
do you have it?
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, you could still be a halfling and have big hands and have a normal sized dagger. It might be a short sword at that point, but I don't know.
So is a halfling short sword just like a human's?
A human
Dagger?
dagger.
Oh,
Maybe. I
yes.
don't know.
Well,
If you know any halflings,
Wow.
comment.
Let us
Let us know.
like, what is this question? I don't understand. You know what? You take artistic license with this one, and you make that dagger as big as you want.
But if you think about it for a second, it does kind of make sense though, because let's say a great sword, for example. Great sword in the book, there's one, and it deals X amount of damage and has X amount for the attack bonus for the attack, right? But you may not be proficient in it, but as a halfling, you could pick up a great sword and it's still going to do the same amount of damage. So, in relation to this question, a dagger for a full-size person, if a halfling's dagger is half the size, let's say, I'm walking into this here, if it's only 2.5 inches long or 3 inches long, is it still how hard you shove? Wait,
Oh,
no,
no.
Let me rephrase that. Is it still how hard you fight with it that matters? Because it's still going to do the same amount of damage. I can't believe I used
How
the word
did we
shove in that
spiral into
conversation.
sword fights?
Okay.
Like, how
Oh
did
my
we get
God.
here?
So the base height of a halfling is 2 feet 7 inches.
Holy biscuit. That dagger is 4 inches long. No bigger.
Then they've got a height modifier of 2d4 to add to it. So they're not big, obviously. They're called a halfling. Like it can't be more than 4 inches.
Yeah, I feel like that's accurate. Sorry, I'm
Get the tape measure.
using my fingers to measure.
Hang on, let me go get a ruler.
This is an inch, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like that big.
Oh man.
What if I have
Oh,
big hands?
podcast listeners,
It's
if you could only
it's like
see.
this can. It's like my can. Right there.
Hey, look, it's a halfling dagger.
Da-da-da.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Did we actually answer this question? I don't even know. So also,
What was the question?
it was like how long, the question was, how long would a dagger meant for a halfling be?
4 inches. I think we've
I think
agreed
that's
on
fair.
that.
Okay, so here's my next question, because why not go down the spiral at this point? Does that include the hilt? So is the hilt part of this, and then that's the blade, or
I think 4-inch blade.
Yeah, 4-inch blade.
then that's a short sword?
What?
For a halfling? No.
No, how long is a
I'm-
human? How long
I
is a
know.
human blade?
I'm just saying that he's always gonna think his thing is longer than it is.
They're almost 3 feet. Their dagger would be almost half a foot. So I feel like that's fine.
Oh.
Okay.
There's been an epiphany.
My quick Google search of short sword blade length is between 11.8 inches to 23.6 inches.
So a halfling blade would be 6 inches
The
long.
dagger blade is almost
No,
2
that's a
foot.
short sword.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
So that's a short sword for a human.
okay.
So it's 6
you
inches
half
long for a
it-
halfling.
Wait, are we talking about dagger or short sword here?
We're talking about daggers, but
No,
fact-
okay.
short sword
So
measure.
short
But
sword, short sword
oh
is
boy.
between
Hopefully everybody's still with us.
11.
1 and 2 feet.
Yes. Okay.
So if you half
So a
that,
dagger is shorter than a foot, basically. If that's a short sword,
yeah,
a
a
dagger, would
dagger
have to
for
be
a
shorter
human
than
is
a foot.
probably 6 inches. If you have
Well,
have
damn.
a short
It's
sword,
got to be like 3.
3.
So
We
I'm
change it
telling-
from 4 to 3.
That's the official Bards and Barrels answer. 3-inch dagger for halflings. If there's nothing else we've contributed to
mess
the
you
world
up.
of
I
D&D,
think that's this finger, right?
it can be as sharp as a dagger sometime, man. Whew, okay.
Where do we go from here, Ross?
That's
That took way too long.
That took a long time to answer
was
that one.
ridiculous.
Well, I think we have time for one more. This one comes from pretty sure this is a player character wanting to know: does anyone else prefer to have a backstory that is separate from the ongoing game story, or is this just my unique preference? I think that is a hard one to answer.
It's a personal choice. I feel like I think a lot of people do, but I also think there's a lot of fun that can be had if you tie your character's backstory into the campaign, and it gives the DM some kind of license there to add components of your backstory in more naturally than if your backstory is completely separate. It gets kind of hard to tie some of those things together.
I think you're always going to have some backstory that's not connected to the campaign because
Yeah.
that's what your backstory is. It's outside of the campaign where you came from. So, yes. But like Phil said, yeah, you need to be able to incorporate who you are into where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think like if this is a brand new campaign with brand new characters, it's easier to have a separate backstory because everybody's come up with something, you really don't know what to do with it yet. But the longer you play, I think the harder it is not to make connections back to somebody's backstory, because it's just how you find ways to connect characters and where you came from and who you are, what makes you who you are.
Yeah, like once I kill all the guys' characters when we resume this campaign, their new characters are probably going to be tied to their old ones in some way.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Thanks, Phil. You're assuming you're gonna kill us.
Foreshadowing.
We all know that I don't ever let you die. You get saved by deities,
That
so
is
it's
very
fine.
true. Very true.
This time you're gonna end up with a life debt, but
Ooh.
Ooh.
not that I've planned this at all.
At all.
I'm going to light some torches and walk into gas-filled dungeons again.
Wouldn't be the first time, right? All right. Any other thoughts on that before we get out of here for the night?
Is this that dagger question?
I'm
No.
We're still
on
on the
that one.
dagger. It's what was our final answer? 3 inches. 3 inches is the official final length of a
And
dagger.
a short sword for a halfling is 6.
Not a lot of difference between
6
that dagger and a
to
short
a foot.
sword.
6 inches to 12 inches between there.
Leave it to us to wrap up by talking length. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Bards and Barrels. You can listen to past episodes of the show anywhere podcasts can be found. Want to stay in the loop and not miss the latest from us? Be sure to head over and give us a like and follow on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Bards and Barrels. We'll see you soon.